Macaulay had been invited by Martha to spend time with her learning the tricks of the catering trade, and was flabbergasted by what she witnessed. At parties she catered, Martha loved to get the bottles of wine that were sort of half full or a quarter full and bring them back to the catering kitchen in Westport to make homemade vinegar, which would end up in Ralph Lauren's gift baskets, Macaulay asserted. There was a whole period when we were just kind of snickering about it because if there was even wine in people's glasses, she would kind of dump it into a bottle to take home. And when I asked Martha, well, what about germs? She said, no, it's alcohol. That kills the germs. You guys, she was literally taking people's half-drunk wine glasses, pouring it into a bottle, going home, making vinegar, and putting it in Ralph Lauren gift baskets. You've got to be kidding me. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We're going to keep going in the Martha Stewart story today. I want to say that yesterday I made a mistake uploading. When I edited, I forgot to make sure the music was only in the intro and then it extended for the whole video. I didn't even realize it. And then I had uploaded the video. I was checking on, how's it doing? And I saw instantly tons of people really annoyed and angry about the music, so took it down and I re-uploaded it. But that meant that it was really late when it finally hit. And so if you haven't seen that one, maybe go watch that one first before you start on this one, because then you'll get the flow of the story better. Sorry about yesterday's mistake. Thank you for those who were understanding about it. Okay. This chapter today is called Cookie Cutters. And like I told you yesterday, in this chapter we see more of Martha finding friends, pinpointing exactly what they have that would be useful for her. She has a lot of artistic friends. She finds exactly what they are doing or what they have that could be useful to her brand, because she's very much trying to build a brand. And she will take and pick and use and abuse those are in her circle so that she can collect their ideas and then pass them off as her own. So this chapter is entitled Cookie Cutters, and it begins, after her ouster from the market basket, Martha wasted no time opening a new version of the store, named Martha Stewart's Market Basket, which operated out of a little shop a short walk from Turkey Hill. Martha had tried to generate the interest of investors, hoping to run her business with other people's money. She felt she had a lot of experience and expertise, and a good track record with her catering business, which had been helped along by the name recognition she developed at the common market, by good word of mouth from satisfied clients, and from the publicity she was continuing to get for herself. So Martha had quite a formidable little prospectus in hand when she approached potential investors. One such angel was Eva Weiner, who'd been hired by Dick Goldman to work in the food area at the common market. Weiner had once mentioned to Martha in passing that her well-to-do husband Sam might be willing to back his wife in a small food business. Martha wanted a deal, but it wouldn't be a 50-50 proposition, Weiner said. The way Martha wanted it, Sam was supposed to put up half the money, but I was not going to get 50% of it because Martha said she had all the customers. We said, no way. Martha probably approached me because she knew my husband had the money, and she wanted to use me because I'm a hard worker. In the end, Weiner was relieved that she didn't go into partnership with Martha. I saw her take advantage of too many people at the market basket, she declared. I saw that nothing is important to Martha other than Martha. She's shrewd at business, and she's a smart person, but I could never say that Martha's a nice person. Others also turned down Martha's offer. They felt she was too greedy, too abusive, and too egomaniacal, as one put it, to want to get involved with her. Without investors, Martha was forced to fund the shop with her and Andy's money, about $5,000. She ran the store with the help of her sister Laura and a few other women. But the shop generated very little business, forcing Martha to close the retail outlet in under a year. Meanwhile, Martha was creating other opportunities for herself. She was continually pitching stories about her activities to the editors of Westport News. She was always doing one thing or another with the Westport Historical Society, for instance. They got her photo in the paper one week, story about her latest project the next. She also was starting to penetrate national publications, such as Mademoiselle, House Beautiful, and Bon Appetit, among others. Through the good graces of well-placed friends in the women's magazine world, like Mary Emmerling, Martha was being asked to contribute the occasional articles about food, gardening, and decorating. Good Housekeeping's furniture and decorating editor, Joanne Barwick, who lived in Westport, had become aware of Martha's growing reputation through all the local publicity. In early 1978, Barwick was working on a prototype of a new monthly to be called Country Living. Having heard so much about Turkey Hill Farm, she made a date to meet Martha and came away smitten with the house and the lady of the manor. In July 1978, when the premiere issue of Country Living hit the stands, Martha Stewart's kitchen, in all its copper-potted, butcher-blocked, garland-stoved glory, graced the cover. Again, let's take a look at that kitchen. You guys, I know it's a different time. I just can't imagine at any time, in any place, in any century, that this kitchen would be a place you'd want to spend, as she says, 70% of your time. In this clutter? Inside was a layout of a wonderful holiday dinner that Martha had cooked, and we're all in the picture having this marvelous dinner in Martha's ideal kitchen. Ideal. The first issue of Country Living was an immediate and enormous success. 500,000 copies sold out in a few weeks, and it propelled a number of careers, among them Martha's. Seeing the interest in the country movement, as exemplified in the Country Living sellout, Barwick was named editor-in-chief of House Beautiful. A year later, in 1979, Barwick recruited Mary Emmerling away from Mademoiselle and made her decorating editor. On Emmerling's recommendation, Barwick hired Martha as House Beautiful's freelance food editor, putting her name on the masthead, which gave Martha a national magazine identity, a major credential, and real credibility. Barwick found Martha to be a creative, driven, ambitious, and focused dynamo. Or, as another former House Beautiful female editor put it less diplomatically, a royal bitch on wheels who would have gone after Joanna's job in a minute if she'd had an opportunity. That thought had in fact passed through Barwick's mind on occasion, she acknowledged, during the time that Martha was affiliated with the magazine. As it turned out, though, Martha was a better cook than a writer or editor. She found writing arduous and boring, and she usually waited until the last minute to complete and turn in her assignments. Her pieces, according to Barwick, were often heavily edited and slickly rewritten by House Beautiful staff people. But readers never knew the difference. Martha, who always believed her own publicity, loved seeing her name in print, and had already begun to think of herself as a writer and journalist. She was even telling friends that one day she'd have a magazine of her own. Knowing Martha, they had no reason to scoff. Okay, well, so this is how Martha's getting into the magazines, right. And no one's ever going to take away from Martha that she was incredibly creative. No one's ever going to say that Martha didn't know what she was about. She was definitely a student of the aesthetic that she was trying to cultivate in her environment and cultivate in your home, too, if you'd like to take her advice. So she knew what she was about. She knew about antiques. She knew about food. She knew about gardening. Like, she had the know-how. This is not a Meghan Markle situation where she has no know-how. She knows what she's talking about. It's just that her personality is so egregiously annoying to everybody she's around. She is an egomaniac. I mean, nobody would disagree with that. And I feel that her situation at the Market Basket is such a microcosm of what she ends up being in life. Because, yes, she was doing the work, but she was doing it fraudulently and annoying the hell out of people. So, yes, it's like, it's this weird dynamic where somebody can be so successful, but then such an annoyance to the people who knew her intimately. I guess it doesn't really matter because she doesn't need to know you intimately for you to buy into her ideas. So it's, her pockets are still being lined with your cash. But it is interesting that somebody who's so off-putting could be in a market that's about lifestyle, about ease, comfort, beauty, and there's like none of that in her personality. It's just so ironic. Anyway, let's talk about how she decides to steal some more ideas from friends. Martha was always looking for creative ways to make a buck, such as her aborted attempt to cash in on Vicky Negrin's Gnomes cookbook. She knew a number of artistic people like Negrin, people with inventive minds that she could pick for ideas. Among them were the Einsels. Naid was a talented illustrator and her husband Walter a prominent sculptor. Martha had met Naid Einsel in 1974 when she was overseeing the design and sewing of an enormous quilt that the town of Westport, like other communities across the country, planned to enter in a contest, one of the many events set for the nation's 1976 bicentennial celebration. Einsel was looking for sewers, and Martha applied and quickly won a spot alongside 33 other local women. Her assignment was to sew the Green Farms Congregational Church portion of the quilt, which portrayed different scenes in Westport history. Martha and Naiad found that they had many common interests: art, cooking, old houses, antiques, and they became friends. The only fly in the ointment was the way that Martha treated Andy, which shocked and upset the Einsels, an older couple who had a very close and loving relationship. They came off publicly as a very handsome, happy, nice couple, Einsel observed. But Andy was always saying, "Oh, Martha's mad at me." When he was complaining about her, he acted like a little boy. He'd say things like, "Oh, I can't do that. Martha'd be mad at me." There was a party when she opened her little shop, and afterwards there was a lot of cleaning up to do, and I heard her yelling at him, "Andy, get that! Andy, pick that up!" Really very unpleasant. Friends who lived close to them used to hear her screaming out the window at Andy loud enough for all the neighbors to hear. "Andy, get in here this minute and pick up the," whatever, using a bossy tone of voice. One evening, the Einzells accompanied the Stewarts to a ballet in New York, and on the ride home, they stopped for ice cream. Martha became furious when Andy accidentally dropped his cone. Martha was sitting in the back seat, yelling at him. "How can you be so sloppy?" Einzel recalled. Andy usually didn't say anything when Martha belittled him, but this time he said, "Gee, Martha, you just treat me like a piece of shit. If something happened to you, if you spilled something, I'd be concerned about it. But when it happens to me, you don't give a damn." Really surprised us that he talked back, and it was a very tense drive home. We were glad when the journey ended. The Stewarts' marital problems aside, Naid Einzel still enjoyed Martha, and they remained friends. Every Christmas, Einzel made cookies for her chums, using cardboard cookie cutters she had designed in the shape of animals. Martha loved Naid's work and had borrowed the cutters, supposedly for some of her own baking, eventually returning all but one. Walter Einzel then started making the cookie cutters out of copper, which really impressed Martha. She mentioned them to Andy, who engaged Einzel to make a cookie cutter in the shape of a gnome so there could be gnome cookies at the gnome's book party. The Einzells were paid $75 for their efforts. Which is really shocking when you compare the fact, okay, $75 for a cookie cutter, all right. I don't really know about money back then. Maybe that was a lot of money. But when you consider the fact that one cookie cutter, they felt that they could not hoodwink this couple and pay them less than that. They make one cookie cutter for $75. Okay, but little Vicky Negrin got paid $100 for all of the artwork in the gnome's book. You guys, that's a thick little book. And every single page has the calligraphy on it. And they paid her $100. But this older couple they knew, they couldn't quite screw around so much, so they paid them $75 for a cookie cutter. Little Vicky got $25 more. I mean, that girl worked for months. I'm not saying that the cookie cutter was easy to make, but I mean, it is just a shape. You know what I'm saying? These people. When Martha opened Martha Stewart's market basket, she approached Einzel once again, this time with the proposition to sell the cookie cutters in the shop. When Einzel, busy with other projects, said the design and manufacture would be too time-consuming, Martha proposed a second option. The Einzells could just design the cookie cutters, and Martha would find a way to have them made, a proposition the Einzells found acceptable. Martha agreed to pay the Einzells a royalty on each cookie cutter that she sold. That was the last the Einzells heard about the deal. Until several months later, when I had picked up the New York Times and saw a photograph of Martha in her kitchen putting together holiday baskets for a prominent client, Ralph Lauren. In the foreground was a big copper pig cookie cutter, a replica of the cardboard one Martha had borrowed from Einzel but had never returned. It upset me, but I'm one of those people who cannot bear confrontation, and I just sort of let it go. I didn't want to make a big issue out of it. I just complained to my husband. Not long after, Einzel heard from a friend that Martha was doing a land office business selling the cookie cutters mail order from her home and over the counter at her shop. The Einzells had received not a copper penny of the royalties Martha had agreed to pay them, nor had she told them that she was marketing the item. You guys, this Martha Stewart is a little bitch. Can you imagine? What is she doing? Why is she taking people's things like this and then just thinking Philly D, no one will ever find out? This is the third time that we have heard of her making a deal with somebody saying, we'll share royalties, we'll share payments, we'll share the job, and I'll share the profits. And then they see nary a penny. She's always going behind people's back. She's stealing your idea. She's going behind your back. Yeah, we'll share. You won't share. If Martha says we'll share, kiss that idea goodbye. She's not going to share a penny with you. Not if she can go behind your back and make all the money and then just act like, oh, did we have a deal about the cookie cutters? I forgot. I mean, if you had the gall to ask her, and the thing is, she knew so many people wouldn't because she was such a problematic person that if you asked her anything, she'd blow up in your face. Too many people were scared to call her on this. Too many people were like, I don't want confrontation. So then she continues to get to use and abuse people, take their ideas, promise them profits, take everything for herself and say, oh, did we have a deal? I don't recall. But our dreams are about to come true because Einzel's going to talk to Martha. But unfortunately, that's where the dream ends because we get no satisfaction. The book says finally Einzel confronted Martha. Martha said, oh, I told Andy I thought you were being cool about something and I thought it might be the cookie cutters. She said, well, that's a whole long story and I really wasn't happy with the way they were manufacturing them and I really would like to get together with you again and really work together on some good stuff and we'll get together next week and talk. So then I waited for that call from Martha that never came. She never called to discuss the cookie cutters or the royalties or the other projects. Nothing. And different people said I should have sued her. We had a friend in town who owned a bookshop, and he also was a lawyer, and he kept saying to me that I had a case against Martha. But I said, I just can't sue a friend. Martha, on the other hand, was extremely litigious, and she wouldn't miss an opportunity to sue if she thought that she'd been ripped off. The fact was underscored by an incident involving a Connecticut couple, Tony and Carol Halsey, whom Martha took to court after the couple delayed paying for a catering job. I love this story. Settle down, folks. That's a good one. Okay, so the Halsey refused to pay after Martha doubled her cost estimate just 2 weeks before their planned party. Later, Carolyn Halsey said that she just had us trapped. It seemed very egregious. It seemed very blatant what was going on. The Halseys, he was a well-to-do young businessman, entertained frequently at their beautiful Connecticut home, and had never before had a bad experience with a caterer. For Christmas of 1979, Carolyn Halsey decided to throw a party for family and friends. And after planning their social calendar far in advance, she began looking for a caterer in early September and decided to call Martha, having heard good things. Martha came to the Halsey's home and discussed the menu, hors d'oeuvres followed by a buffet dinner, and then quoted a price that the Halsey found acceptable. The two shook hands, and Martha said that she would put a contract in the mail. Halsey felt confident that Martha would serve her well. It sounded good, she said later. I didn't have any insecure feelings about her. But September passed without a contract from Martha, and then October. By the end of November, Halsey had grown concerned since the invitations had been sent out and the RSVPs returned. She expressed her concern to her husband and then telephoned Martha, who said she was sorry about the delay and promised to get the contract in the mail right away. When Halsey opened the envelope a few days later, she was floored. The price was about double what she quoted me when she was at the house, she said, and I felt like I had been slapped in the face. Halsey immediately telephoned Martha and said that there must have been some mistake, that the contract price was far more than their verbal agreement. Martha said, well, I had a migraine headache that day. I couldn't possibly do it for that amount. This is what the price is. I couldn't believe it. It was 2 weeks before the party, and you can't go out and find a new caterer then. She knew she had us. And this excuse about the headache? Well, I remember clearly when she was here, and she didn't seem to be having a migraine headache. She was fine. Having no other choice, the Halseys allowed Martha to fulfill their arrangement. I was pretty pissed off at Martha Stewart, and so was my wife, Tony Halsey said. I wanted her apology. This, for me, was a matter of principle. I don't like to be taken advantage of by people, so I just said to my wife, I'm not paying her. This woman is arrogant. I'll wait till she sues me. And she did. Halsey contacted his attorney, who found some ridiculous section of Connecticut law that deals with door-to-door salesmen, and we mounted a defense based on that. Prior to the trial date, Andy called Halsey. He said, what are you doing? And I said, look, your wife was dishonest about this, and deceived us, and tricked us, whatever you want to call it. He said, well, then why did you go forward with her? And I said we felt we didn't have any choice since it was so close to the time of the party. And then he said, well, we don't need your money. I'm president of my own publishing company. The guy was really obnoxious to me. I probably said something vulgar to him, and I slammed down the phone. On the day of the trial, an angry Halsey and a livid Martha showed up to do battle. But the case never got to court. The judge, in conference with Halsey's attorney, told them to settle, and he didn't want to take up the busy court's time with such a trivial matter. In the end, Halsey paid Martha what was due her. But it took her 18 months to collect, he declared, still savoring his ploy. She was so irritated by the nerve of these people not paying her. She had to spend money. She had to hire a lawyer. During Martha's years as a caterer, the Halseys weren't the only customers who felt as if they had been served a raw deal on a silver platter. There was a constant stream of complaints about Martha's ethics and tactics that never went to court. At one Martha Stewart catered cocktail party, for instance, people complained about how terrible the food tasted. A friend of Martha's, who had recommended her to the party givers, said later that she had checked with a trusted servant who was present and been told, this food is the food we served last night. It's been redone and made into hors d'oeuvres. Yuck. The same clients later received a bill to cover separate taxi rides for Martha's employees from a train station to the party site. The clients had actually witnessed the employees getting out of one cab, and they were furious. Other clients were shocked to discover that Martha had taken off with leftover food and drink. Oh, yes. Martha does not let a scrap of food remain at any place where she's catered. Martha scoops it all up, basically puts it in her purse and saves it for later. Listen, you guys. This is crazy to me. These people paid for this food and drink, okay? It no longer belongs to Martha. She might have brought it. It doesn't belong to her. Okay. Yes. Martha is constantly taking off with leftover food and drink. The book says the next day people would say, "Where's the liquor? Where's the ham?" a catering friend of Martha's asserted. And Martha would say, "Well, you ate it all." And they said, "No, we didn't. It was on the table when we were packing up." And Martha would recycle it and use it for another party. Besides customers who felt duped by her and friends who were bamboozled by her, Martha surprised magazine and catering colleagues who, after watching her in action, thought she was venial and unprincipled. "We had such problems with her," Martha Emmerling recalled of Martha's period as food editor at House Beautiful. "Whenever we would photograph somewhere, we'd leave all the food and say to the people on location, 'Look, have a party tonight.' But when Martha was on the scene, that changed. All of a sudden, the food was packed up and ready to go. I said to Martha, 'Wait a minute, this lady's having a party. What are you doing?' And Martha said, 'Oh no, I need this food for a catering thing tomorrow.' That became a real problem for us at the magazine. That sort of thing was typical of Martha. No matter what we were doing, she'd start packing it up and taking it home. I once had a beautiful all-white party, country picnic, at my loft downtown, and I saw the kids packing up the hams and the turkeys, and I said, 'What are you doing?' And they said, 'Oh, well, Martha said to take it unless you ask for it.' And they winked and said, 'Just ask us to leave it,' which I did, and they left it. But if I didn't ask, they were under strict orders from Martha to take it for her own personal use at parties she catered." What? That is wild. That is wild. Where does she get the gall to take food that doesn't belong to her to then recycle at a party? The cheap ass. I can't even believe it. Okay. That is so cheap. I can't. But to continue. In one instance, Martha got into a post-photographic shoot battle over food with Joe Ruggiero, who was the director of advertising for Ethan Allen Galleries. Ruggiero had hired Martha to star in a 20-minute sound and slide presentation called Christmas in Connecticut that was shown in the furniture chain's 250 stores across the country to lure in customers. Martha recorded the voiceover and was photographed by Barry O'Rourke, a pal of Emmerling's, during a week of intensive production. All went well, till the very end, when the food's being cleared up. "To me," said O'Rourke, "it was so bizarre, because Joe packed up the food and said, 'I'll take it home.' And Martha said, 'No, I'm going to use this smoked turkey for a catering job tonight.' So they got into a big argument over this food. They were well close to screaming at each other. Ruggiero said that he didn't want to give up the centerpiece, a big turkey. But Martha wanted to use the food for a party that night. Ruggiero declared, 'I felt the food should stay because Ethan Allen paid for it, and I felt the crew should share it, and that's the way it ended.' Martha didn't get it." Is that not insane to you? She shows up at a photo shoot. This is not her food. This is not her photo shoot. She is being paid to do a job. She's going to make a little 20-minute presentation to play on loop in these stores. And she had the gall to be like, "I'll take that centerpiece. I need it for a catering job tonight." What gives her the right? What in the world gave her any idea that this is the way you would behave? That you'd show up at a place, see some food available, and be like, "Oh, I'll take that," and kind of recycle it for my catering job? Who would do that? Martha Stewart. But if taking a turkey from the Ethan Allen Gallery's photo shoot isn't bad enough, listen to this next thing that she does, which is crazy. Crazy. This is a person whose methods are so cringy and cheap, it's shocking. I'm shocked to my very core that she would think that this is appropriate and that she would let anybody witness her doing this, and that she would try to gaslight those around her into thinking that this kind of behavior, this kind of approach to catering is appropriate and what we should all be doing. I mean, this is a person who is so cheap. Listen to this next story. If you're not shocked by her trying to take the smoked turkey from the centerpiece of a photo shoot she was invited to be on, you are not prepared for this next part. Helpers in Martha's catering business, such as Claire McCulley, were shocked when they discovered that Martha was actually recycling wine to use in the fancy Ralph Lauren gift baskets she had been contracted to prepare and distribute for the clothing mogul. McCulley, the second wife of Stewart's longtime friend George McCulley, had been invited by Martha to spend time with her learning the tricks of the catering trade, and was flabbergasted by what she witnessed. At parties she catered, Martha loved to get the bottles of wine that were sort of half full or a quarter full and bring them back to the catering kitchen in Westport to make homemade vinegar, which would end up in Ralph Lauren's gift baskets, McCulley asserted. There was a whole period when we were just kind of snickering about it because if there was even wine in people's glasses, she would kind of dump it into a bottle to take home. And when I asked Martha, well, what about germs? She said, "No, it's alcohol. That kills the germs." You guys, she was literally taking people's half-drunk wine glasses, pouring it into a bottle, going home, making vinegar, and putting it in Ralph Lauren gift baskets. You've got to be kidding me. That is the most nasty, disgusting thing I've ever heard. Half-drunk wine? bits of food floating in it? I mean, like, what are you talking about? Alcohol, nothing. I don't want somebody's half-drunk wine in my gift basket. What are you talking to me about right now? Please, someone help her. Well, Macaulay continues. Nothing went to waste. Hors d'oeuvres that she served the night before that weren't wilted, she'd serve at another party. She told me, you know, Claire, that's how you make your profits. Martha's philosophy was like someone at a restaurant who had eaten half his steak and tells the waiter, oh, wrap it up, I'll take it home. Other times, if there was wine or liquor left, she would take the bottles and give one or two to her favorite person on the crew, and they'd giggle about it. But it was stealing. Martha also openly boasted that she refused to pay debts if she wasn't satisfied with the product or service provided to her. I know she stiffed a lot of people, asserted Naid Einzel. She'd say, I refuse to pay for that. I'm just not going to give him a cent. She even mentioned that she had seen a therapist and she didn't pay him because she felt that he didn't help her. Is her other name George Costanza?
I'm only paying half.
You can't do that.
Why not?
He's a doctor. You gotta pay what he says.
Oh, no. I pay what I say.
I'll pay what I say. I mean, what is this? Who has ever heard of going to a therapist and being like, I didn't think that you helped me, so I'm not going to pay you. You didn't give me the help I expected, so I'm just not going to pay you. Martha continued such practices long after she had become rich and famous as America's doyenne of taste and style. In June 1995, she was sued by her loyal and longtime gardener, Reinaldo Abreu, a Brazilian immigrant, for allegedly failing to pay him thousands of dollars in overtime. Reinaldo charged in a lawsuit that along with trenching the Martha Stewart asparagus and trimming the Martha Stewart shrubs, he handled the Martha Stewart security, did the Martha Stewart repairs, looked after the Martha Stewart pets, and washed the Martha Stewart cars. As evidence that she made him work overtime for her, he produced notes he said Martha left for him that showed that he did routine caretaker work. One said, quote, basement smells bad. Look for cat poops. Change litter. Happy Valentine's Day. Another declared, apartment. Prepare all the woodwork. In the entire apartment. Scrape all the windows and sand any chipping paint on door frames, etc. For all that, he claimed Martha paid him $15 an hour, which she increased to $16 but never appropriate compensation when he worked more than 40 hours a week. Everyone thought Martha would quietly settle out of court with the gardener to avoid the adverse publicity. Instead, she aggressively defended herself at the trial in October 1996. She contended that Turkey Hill was an actual farm, and that Reinaldo was an agricultural worker and not entitled to overtime pay under the 1939 U.S. Fair Labor Standards Act. The news media, which had fawned for so long over Martha and helped in large print to make her the icon that she became, now began to turn on her, with news writers salivating over the fact that someone had nailed her publicly. Reinaldo was David to Martha's Goliath. Gloating stories about the lawsuit appeared from coast to coast. But in this case, Goliath won. In March 1997, a Connecticut trial referee ruled in her favor. It's like O.J., said a court observer. Martha naturally had a high-priced dream team lawyer to defend her. And that's a good thing, as the lifestyle guru often intoned. But in 1979, all that strum and drang was in the far distant future. Martha was still little more than a hustling Westport caterer waiting for her main chance. Oh, yeah, some main chances are coming up. Okay, so the next time we read, we're going to be leaving behind the world of leftover wine and used hors d'oeuvres and stealing smoked turkeys whenever we can, to the fine art of entertaining, which is when she's going to publish a book that's really going to shoot her into the public sphere. Now, there's so much drama surrounding that book, I cannot even. So sit tight. But you guys, what is going on with Martha Stewart's catering practices? Did I not tell you that it was crazy? Did I not tell you that it was insane? The stealing of the food, the using of the wine, the reusing of the hors d'oeuvres. Gross. Gross. And it's just so interesting to me because Martha Stewart has this sort of reputation of being like incredibly classy. She knows what to do and all of this. And, you know, maybe that's kind of like not as prominent now that she's just sort of like, you know, she's a cultural icon, but she's always running around with Snoop Dogg and stuff like that. So I don't know if like incredibly classy is the way we describe her anymore. But there was a time when she just was, you know, the bee's knees. She knew exactly how to present the most beautiful visual picture. And in all of her books and everything, it's always just gorgeous, gorgeous. But is it gorgeous, gorgeous to steal wine out of people's glasses and make homemade vinegar and then give that as a present to Ralph Lauren? Yuck. Yuck. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow is a pop culture day. So Wednesday, of course, is when we review various things that have happened. And then on Thursday, we'll pick up our Martha Stewart story. So we'll see you later this week. Bye.